Well, I mean, there's different breaths for different reasons, but the breath that we do is the breath as we use the body as an instrument of consciousness to begin to draw energy from those lower centers back up into the brain. So imagine the majority of people's thoughts are connected to their first three centers in their body, and those centers have everything to do with survival, sexuality, pain, suffering, victimization, guilt, shame, anger, control, self-importance, fear, aggression. And most people think certain thoughts that turn on certain circuits in their brain. They feel certain emotions. The moment they feel certain emotions, those emotions signal hormonal centers. And then the moment we feel a certain emotion, we think more corresponding thoughts equal to how we're feeling. And the repetition of that cycle conditions the body emotionally to become the mind. So we're taking thought in the form of energy and storing it in the body. And now the body becomes the mind of that emotion. So if the majority of a person's body mind is in the program and energy is stored in the body and 5% is in the conscious mind, then there's got to be a way to pull the mind out of the body and to begin to liberate that energy. So all of a sudden, if the emotions are stored in the body and the body's in the past, then once this energy starts to move, we're freeing the body from the past. And as that energy starts to move, it begins to open different centers and creates more of a profound field for the person. So the way to do it, though, is not a passive breath. You have to find a level of intensity that's greater than that body-mind. And you have to demonstrate an active intent and presence and focus. And I can just tell you from experience, as well as the numerous brain scans we have, once that energy shakes loose, it's a moving freight train, and it creates way more energy in the brain, and not only just a little bit, but way more energy. And by the same means, the brain goes into a very, very highly organized state of coherence. Now the person is in that gamma state and super aware. And so we do that to free the body from the past. We're doing that to actually create that torus field. And when you're living in stress and you're living in survival, or you're over consuming, you're over sexual, those centers are drawing from that invisible vital field around your body and turning it into chemistry. So in essence, the field around your body is diminishing and you're becoming more matter and less energy, more particle and less wave. And now your body, instead of being like a magnet that has the same field, your body is just a piece of metal with no charge and there's no field. So the act of starting to move energy between the polarity of the North Pole and the South Pole in the body begins to run a current up that central pole, and just like a magnet, you start producing that field, and the effects are pretty dramatic. Consciousness is not a byproduct of the brain. Consciousness is actually using the brain to produce different levels of mind. And there's just some great research that's going on right now by some really unlimited researchers that are showing that the field around the body and the brain is where consciousness exists. And it is that field that begins to manipulate different circuits in the brain to produce mind. So mind is the brain in action, but mind needs energy and it needs consciousness to move through it. So if the brain can actually change itself, and it can, we can rewire the brain by learning or experiencing or changing our behaviors or making different choices. The fact that we can change the way we think, it means then we're not the brain. We're the operator of the brain, because who's doing the changing of the brain and the mind? The brain can't change the brain. It's just an organ. It's no different than the liver. The mind can't change the brain because the mind is the brain in action. So then who's doing the changing of the brain and the mind? And that's consciousness. That's that immaterial aspect of us. So then that consciousness has a field associated with it, because all energy or all frequency carries information. As we begin to tune into different energy and different frequency, we can change the level of mind that we're producing. Research that's been done just at Harvard, the last 50 years, with rats that have a propensity for, say, something like uterine cancer. They find that there's an invisible field that they can detect before the cancer shows up, that there's a field where they can see the animals that have had the uterine cancer have a specific signature in their field. They can see the same signature in those rats, but they don't have the uterine cancer yet, but they do get it. So it starts in the field before it's in matter. So it's not matter that emits a field. It's the field that actually organizes matter. Change the field, change the energy, you change matter. And that's the work that we're doing. Well, I do think that consciousness is where it permeates. It's in and around us. So microtubules are little cytoskeletons. They're like if you took a cell, a big round cell, and you were to blow all the snot off it, you would be left with these little tubules. And those tubules are very, very sensitive to frequency. In fact, they vibrate. So as the person is experiencing greater levels of energy, they begin to vibrate a little bit more. So that's where consciousness lives, because you can't have energy without consciousness. So it's in you and it's all around you. And interestingly enough, when we measured DNA expression, changes of DNA in 4 days in one of our advanced workshops, one of the genes that was actually activated was the gene for the construction and the stability of the cytoskeletons, the microtubules, which means that our students are changing their frequency and the cells are beginning to repair and produce stronger cytoskeletal structures. We've just been hypnotized and conditioned into believing we need a reason to be grateful or to be thankful or appreciative. That's waiting for something outside of us to change how we feel inside of us. And when someone gives us something and we feel better, and it takes away our pain or our emptiness or our lack, we pay attention to who caused it. But in essence, the structure, the fundamental structure of that is really waiting for your outer world to change your inner world. But the majority of the time, when your outer world is throwing fastballs at you or throwing darts at you, then the majority of the time we're reacting in the opposite way. We're feeling anger or frustration or fear or sadness or deflation. So then why not teach a person how to regulate internal states independent of their conditions in their external environment? Trade fear for gratitude, trade anger for appreciation, and train them on how to do that so that they know when they're there and when they're not. So our research shows that just 10 minutes of gratitude a few times a day is going to strengthen your immune system by 50%. You begin to make this very chemical called immunoglobulin A, the primary defense against bacteria and viruses. That system shuts down when you feel the stress hormones like anger, fear, and pain. So then trade that, and all of a sudden, if you're feeling thankful, you're now without anything outside of you. Your body, as the unconscious mind, doesn't know the difference between an experience that creates an emotion and an emotion you're creating by thought alone. The body's believing it's already receiving what you're intending, and you will only accept, believe, and surrender to thoughts that are equal to your emotional state. So you won't accept, believe, and surrender to any thoughts that not. You could say, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm healthy, I'm healthy, I'm healthy. And if you're feeling fear or lack or pain, that thought's not making it to your body. Change the state of gratitude. And all of a sudden now the person will accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts equal to that emotional state. And they begin to program their autonomic nervous system into a different destiny. And that's how people start to change. Positive thinking, you can think positively all you want, but if you're feeling negatively, that thought's not going to make its way to the body. Change the emotional state, and all of a sudden the body will accept the thought. That's why affirmations don't work. We chose to be here. I mean, this is a great time to be alive. Every paradigm, every system, whether it's the environment, the political model, the economic model, the religious model, the educational model, the medical model, everything is collapsing for a reason, because it cannot sustain itself in a new consciousness. And we have to face these times, not in fear, not in rage, not in resentment, not in prejudice, not in control, but we have to face these times with being the example of everything we want to see, how we want to see the world to change. So that means then, as you're working on changing yourself and I'm working on changing myself, and I think we start making a better world. And we should never, ever make it about a person. It's just when we do it, we give our power away to that person because we're giving them our attention. We should make it about principles. And once you make it about principles and no longer about people, people will unite for principles because they want freedom, they want happiness, they want peace, they want love, they want connection. That's our innate normal state when we're not living in survival. And so much of our world reminds us to live in survival because that's what people keep their attention. So I think it's so important for us really to be the living example of everything we want to see changed in the world. And it actually is good for you too. You actually start releasing oxytocin, and oxytocin signals nitric oxide, and nitric oxide causes your heart to swell. And when your heart swells, you have more energy there, and you start leading with your heart. You start making decisions with your heart, and all of a sudden you start trusting a lot more. So Our research also shows that when you get a group of people together and you have them open their hearts and feel those emotions, that it affects other people at a non-local place. Other people are affected when you start feeling those elevated states that are on the other side of the room. So, I mean, again, that's creating a resonant field, a frequency that people can tune into and at least be affected by autonomically.